Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Curley. It's great to have a representative from Roscommon here speaking with us in the Agricultural Committee, so welcome. I suppose you would know very much so where we come from, obviously, in the West, you know, the challenges we have. We already have quite a lot of areas under conservation in the west of Ireland. We would have a lot of SACs, for example, and that would be very much down to the geographic makeup, you know, the limestone, the type of landscape that we have. So there are already quite a large number of areas that are protected by, you know, these areas of conservation. And we know these very well in our area. I suppose just a little bit about this nature restoration bill. I think you mentioned in your opening statement, is it roughly 20 to 24% of the European Union land mass is what it is the target, in other words, for this restoration? And if that is the case, I suppose my question is really Ireland and its land mass, or the Republic of Ireland. You know, we would be, I suppose, one of the smaller countries there. How are they proposing to look at it on a country basis, or is that, you might have that detail?
Just with regard to the figure that you've asked, so it's 20% of all EU land and sea area to be covered by restoration measures by 2030. That's it. Okay. That's just a specific target that the EU has set themselves. When this is being fulfilled, when member states are being asked to set out the amount of area that they plan to restore by 2030, when they tot up the figures, they'll be looking for the percentage to be 20%. And if it's not, they'll be coming back and saying, okay, Germany, you need to increase it by here. Ireland, you need to increase it by here. And it is supposedly up to the member state to then to fulfil that, or they do maintain that the member state will have the final word on that. However, there's a lot of areas in Europe that are actually devoid of any data in the first place. Okay. So finding that they could be a lot better. There is actually no data in the impact assessments provided by the EU for Romania, which is one of the biggest countries in Europe. So that, just to answer that part of it, with regards to you brought up SCAs, so that's actually a specific target that is outside of restoration. So in the first slide, see, when I created the slideshow, I thought I'd be doing a presentation, and that's why I did it the way I did.
Yeah, I think we have it here as well in front of us. In the first slide of your presentation, I suppose, where you speak a little bit about the background, is it of Copa Cogeca?
Yeah, and then page 3, you'll see Biodiversity Strategy.
Yes,
so
exactly.
Within that, there is 4 different pillars. There's 4 pillars to the Biodiversity Strategy: protect nature, restore nature, enable transformative change, and EU action to support biodiversity globally. So restoration comes under the second pillar. But when you're talking about SCAs, which is a different thing, and maybe it's a complete tangent here, but maybe it's something to raise awareness of that's coming down the track for all EU countries, especially Ireland, is that under protect nature, there are targets there for 30% of all EU land, sea and land, territorial land, to be protected. That means in national parks, under Natura 2000, etc., etc. Yeah. If memory serves, the specific number there is 18% for protection. Okay. And so there will be 12% of all EU land will have to be under a protection order by 2030. Those targets are coming, and how they're going to be divvied up, and the pledges that are there are going to be released in November, December of this year. However, there's also a similar target attached to that. It's 10%, so it's 30 and 10%, which is 10% of strict protection, which means that no activity can take place in the first place, which is strict, and currently the EU has 3% there. So why I'm bringing this up is because it is hoped that in the first years of this, that restoration measures can take place in these areas that are already under SCAs, that are under Natura 2000 areas and districts, so that the actual brunt of this can be taken later. And that is the hope of us here in Brussels, that we're working for the stakeholders, farmers, foresters, et cetera, so to allow that.
Yeah, and I suppose, like, I mean, you know, that's the challenge in where we come from is, you know, having a viable farming sector when you also have to deal with the landscape that we have as well. I suppose the overall aim of the nature restoration law is around food security. It's about healthy ecosystems. I mean, I suppose what the overall goal is that they are trying to ensure that we have clean water and so on. I know that this has maybe been brought in as well, is it, along with sort of looking at how to, I suppose, you know, on top of the Habitats Directive, the Birds Directive, I mean, they're also looking at maybe how to maintain or how to encourage, you know, clean water and so on, and our rivers and so on. But is there ways there in the impact statements and impact assessments that you've reviewed where you would say that there's one that's maybe relevant, particularly for Ireland? I know there's a number of impact assessments at the end. Is there one that's of particular relevance for Ireland as such? Is there one specific? Are they each country based? And then also, I suppose, how do you see that countries could work to actually have viable farming sectors, particularly when we have small farming families and we have communities that are already, you know, at the pin of their collar, you know, trying to manage this. Is there a particular impact assessment that's relevant to us?
With regards to what you're saying about healthy water and water quality, soil quality, etc., and a healthy environment, which will increase, you know, our ability to continue to produce in general. So this law is building upon previous legislation that has been built in these areas. So you've got the Water Framework Directive, you've got the Habitats Directive, there's the Water Sludge Directive. There's a variety of different legislation that is building upon and using for a specific targets. One of the main reasons for this particular the form of this and the fact that it's legally binding and the fact that it's a regulation is because the Habitats Directive is from 1992 and there are protection orders that are put in place in that's Natura 2000, etc. But when they assess it, it has not been successful. And in the opinion of the Commission, it is due to allowing it to be voluntary in the first place, that member states can do this. And that's why they're putting in legally binding targets in this one, so that member states will be pulled up and assessed as to why, where, what and how they're failing to achieve these targets. So that it's building upon previous legislation that's already there with regards to how they're making these targets. With regards to the impact assessments, no, unfortunately, they're actually done per ecosystem. There's 12 actual impact assessment reports that are a part of this.
Okay. And
you can check them out. There's one particularly on soil. There's one on peatlands. One I would check out for interest of Ireland is the peatland one. I checked the number. 1 second, I can literally check it here. And also the annexes, but because I have them all open, because this is all I do every day.
Well done, you're an expert on it.
Well, I hope at this stage I know a few bits about it.
Yeah.
I'll get that in a minute. But one of the things you brought up, the impact that it'll have on farms and viable agricultural sectors. If I knew that answer now, I think I would already be the head of Copa Cogeca at this stage. No, they haven't created a specific impact assessment on rural communities, rural dwellers, rural activities at all. And that's one of the things that Copa Cogeca are calling for, and we're calling consistently for, is that there is a sincere and concrete impact assessment done on the socio-economic impacts that this will have on rural areas.
It's so true.
Sorry?
No, it's just so true, just as you're saying, what you're saying there, I suppose, like, you know, what we want to see and what we are seeing is that farmers are leading out in so many technologies now to manage the demands that are coming down, and our population is growing, you know, at a global level. You know, and it is down to our farmers to provide that food security at a global level. So this has to be that we're all working towards common goals. So, you know, the overall goal of this is food security, you know, that we will have healthy ecosystems, that we can continue, that we can lead, you know, larger communities in rural areas. But yeah, I suppose, sorry, and to let you continue, but that's, yeah, just to emphasise your point.